Okay, Natalie. See how this series looked at this. That's good job experimenting with the stamps and the clipping mask that was provided. It looks like you're using the clipping mask to its potential. So good job there. It's difficult right now to tell because the stamps are at different sizes. We can see this one is much smaller than this one, so it's kind of difficult to tell with varying sizes. See, these should all line up. These perfs should all line up perfectly, indicating the consistent size. This one's way smaller. See what I'm saying? So it's a little difficult. Sorry to keep scrolling like this. There's no PDF included, so I have to keep scrolling up and down. I'm sorry if it's if it's making you dizzy. Sorry about that. So I use the same font sizes for the text. I think that the text is. I think this is too small. Forever is too small, and it might be a little bit difficult to read. This one's pointing out. This one's pointing in. The other two are pointing out. I would recommend pointing in, but yeah, I would recommend it pointing into the composition, or placing it on the other side and having it point in, and that means the baseline, the top cap line, facing to the outside of the stamp itself. So this one kind of makes it. It's. I think it's a little bit more effective to have it face in, like we see right down here. Okay. Now, as the background, I'm not feeling the color for the background because I don't think it provides enough contrast. So I would recommend working with the background color. Another option is to use the clipping mask, but use white outside the clipping mask and only use yellow on the inside of the clipping mask. That'll frame things really nicely, and it might be a wonderful option um, for your work as well. So we covered typography, we covered contrast of the background, size of the stamps. The illustrations themselves, I think, are still a little underdeveloped. I would develop the clothing a little bit more. I still say that we need a little more contrast in the eyes, and we still need shadow and highlight area. And I think in all four, honestly. Um, yeah, and the reason I say that, well, let's take a look at the clothing. The clothing is really, really, I think it's underdeveloped. Take a look at the example. Look at the clothing. Look at the folds and the beautiful creases and shadows and the highlights in the folds. And then also we've got texture for the clothing here. So that, you have to admit, that adds an enormous, enormous amount of visual engagement. So watch your clothes. Also, shadow highlight and more detail in the face, in all four faces of the stamps. Take a look at this example here. Look at these gorgeous shadow and highlight areas. It's very subtle, but very, very, on the lips, on the teeth, on the tongue, on the inside of the mouth, cheeks, cheekbones, nose, bottom of the nose, the little ball at the end of the nose, little shadows above the eyes, over here, shadow, over here, highlight. Just wonderful work. Now, don't forget, there's a bunch of tutorials in the Welcome to Week 3 announcement on how to provide shadow and highlight. So um, other than that, I think, yeah, I think you're looking good. Oh, another thing is this, is that right now in your series, now this is a series, so it should be highly, highly cohesive, right? I think that I would try to work a way to use the exact same typography on all four pieces. So in other words, right now, to me, right down here, this looks like, okay, this designer changed the color of the type to accommodate the background. And I think a lot of times it would rather suffice to change the illustration so that the typography remains the same in all four. It's a series, so it's expected that that type should be identical, identical placement, identical color on all four stamps. So think about that. It's not a huge issue, but you might think about changing up the typography. Also, it looks like in this stamp right here, this type has been kind of reduced a little bit to try to fit in there. And to me, as a designer, it looks like you did that because it wasn't very visible over to the left. But so really, really try to maintain some consistency in typographic presentation. Um, yeah, let's go through individually. Okay, yes, a little contrast in the eyes. We'll try to get a little bit more detail going with it. Lucy wore heavy makeup, really heavy makeup, so don't be afraid to go a little heavier on the eyelashes there. take a look, study this, and take a look at those videos because you'll see a lot of area where you can add um, shadow and highlight. And then over here again, contrast in the eyes. Her eyes to me look really, really small. And I'm not real sure if Carol had blue eyes or not, but if she did, like I don't mean her eyes. I mean the eyeballs, the pupil, the colored area, the iris and the pupil. That portion looks really small. I try to add a little color to her eyes too. Right now, the contrast is such that we just don't see a change in the pupil for the eye color as well. So. All right, so I mean, I think you've got, oh, this one, that face is great. That face is great, isn't it? I love that face. I've always loved this photograph of her. I think it just nails her personality. So this is perfect. Again, shadow highlight, work it out, man. One little trick using shadow and highlight is to use the same hue. Use the parent hue as the skin tone, but just add a much, much, much darker value. So you're shading the parent hue to make it darker, but nonetheless the same parent hue. But right here, there's a kind of a big kind of a point right there, and that's really uncomfortable. I'm not sure what that is. If it is part of the photograph, you might want to smooth that out. Sometimes photographs include distortions that kind of look strange when we are transposing photographs to illustrations. The nature of photography does create distortions that look natural in a photograph, but not natural if you try to illustrate that out. So keep that in mind. Boy, this hair really could use some shadow highlight, more detail in the hair there. All right, so just keep working. I mean, I think that, oh, and plus I want to mention, don't forget, there's all those tutorials in the week 3 announcement. And then I also want to mention that, boy, right here, it looks like this ear is kind of over the hair. That looks a little funny right there. Shouldn't the hair be over the ear, the bottom of the ear? Do you see what I'm saying? It is on this one. The hair covers the top of the ear. This one, that little bottom of the ear covers the hair, but that's physically impossible, right? Since that's just the bottom. It's not her whole ear. It'll be a tiny little bitty ear. But her ear probably comes up to about here or so. So that being the bottom of the hair, it's physically impossible for that to be the bottom of her ear to be in front of the hair. See what I'm saying? Okay, so yes, keep working detail. I mean, I so badly want you to be able to include this in your student portfolio, and it's a really great piece to include in a student portfolio because flat design is so important to the world of graphic design. I think it really shows a wonderful talent to a portfolio reviewer or a potential hiring professional to be able to see very, very detailed, flat, illustrative technique in facial portrait. Goes a long, long way. So as I said, I really, really want this to end up being a good portfolio piece. That shadow right there seems out of place. It also seems like it's coming off the face a little bit. So yeah, just check it out. Take those tutorials, really watch your shadows and highlights. Make sure the shadows are the same parent hue as the skin tone. Yeah, just take a close look at things and let's get some detail. Now, this is our last checkpoint to final submission. So I'll be working double time this week. I do during week 8 of every class, I work double time and I'm available really, I'm a click away. So if you want to make some adjustments and show me the work before you submit your final, I'm more than happy here. Just notice here, the lips right here, very little contrast there. I would maybe darken up that parent hue of the pink for the lips on that one a little, yeah, because the rest all have this wonderful contrast in the lips, but hers are almost disappearing because there's no contrast between the parent hue for the lip color and for the parent hue for the skin tone. So keep that in mind also. Eyelashes here look super underdeveloped. They just look like little lines. So I hope I don't sound discouraging, Natalie. I think you know me well enough by now to know that that's not my nature. I do not want to discourage you. I want to encourage you to really start to sit down and grab yourself a nice cup of coffee and just pump this thing out. And as I was saying before, if you want to run anything by me between now and Sunday, have at it. I'll be here. I'll be here pretty much every day between now and Sunday. I might be out a few hours on Saturday, but that's okay. One final suggestion is that these lines, the more I look at that, like this line right here is really prominent. What you might consider doing here is taking the skin tone and just really adding shading it down to add a lot of black to the skin tone. So you're really adding a dark value to the apparent hue of the skin tone and using that for these facial contour lines. Okay, think about that, try that, let me know what you think. All right, so again, any questions, comments, concerns, or clarifications, please let me know. Thank you very much, Natalie.